much everyone for attending today. Hi Melinda, Northcote, Melbourne. Yes, really topical. In the chat box, we're putting in some comments about where we are coming from today. With most of us still working from home. Who would have thought 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago actually, wouldn't it have been since the very start of COVID, that we would be still working from home and in the thick of this COVID situation. Hi Chris, lovely to have you here. Yes, please put comments in the chat box. Keep telling me where you're from. Hi Tanya at Wombi. Really cool to have you here. I'm going to really fire through some very great useful information today, but I want to do some activities with you today. So it's a 30-minute skill booster. I will get you out of here in 30 minutes if you need to go, but if you want to stay on chat after the 30 minutes, then please feel free to do so. I will be able to hang on the line for a little while. So thank you for joining. I'm going to get straight into it. My name is Julie. If you would like to keep in touch with me, please feel free to take a screenshot. If you need anything after the session, have questions, please get in touch with us. We're here to help, guys. We really want to help as many people as we can during COVID with how to remain, I guess, a little bit calm in a zone that's pretty crazy, and to give you the right advice and tips and techniques around productivity and well-being for you and your team. So we're really encouraging you guys to not only just take on some of this stuff for yourself, but share it with others, share it with your teams, share it with your colleagues and friends to make sure that they're doing okay during COVID lockdown. Our vision as a business here at Think Productive is a work revolution where everyone loves Mondays. Wouldn't that be amazing? And we don't dread going into the office. That's a really key goal for us. So right now for us today, I really wanted today's goal, though, to be around reflecting on and resetting how you feel and how you think about working from home. So I'm going to get into a little bit of background as to kind of the research, what we're seeing, and from working with lots of clients across the country, how COVID and lockdown is affecting us. And then get into my top 5 tips on resetting and I guess moving forward with a productive space wherever possible at home. We love to have blended learning. So I wanted to mention, we do have, when we run workshops, we give everybody lots of resources. For you guys, you'll be able to access the recording after the session. If you need more help, please get in touch. We have lots of activities to do today. And if you need to talk any of those things through, we're here to chat. So just to reinforce that as well. So what I'm going to take you through this morning, we're going to have just a quick chat about, we're still at home, we're still juggling. For those, as I say, that are juggling homeschooling as well as maybe working in a shared space with partners and family and even teenagers at uni. I know I had 2 teenagers here with me for quite a while during the first part of COVID. It can be really tricky. So we'll just touch on that and some key insights there. And then we're going to get into my top 5 tips and resets. We're going to look at getting started. Some really important research there to share with you. We're going to do a little bit of a desk and workspace audit, which I'm really excited about. That's a really cool one for us to do. And we're going to talk about eating frogs. Some of you may, from our previous Ninja Skill Boosters or our workshops, know we talk a lot about frogs. And we're also going to focus on One Key Ninja today, our human, not superhero ninja as well, and explaining the importance of things like taking breaks. And the last section is going to be about work and how it's changed now. This has really changed the way we work. And we're going to talk a little bit about how our new normal might look. Okay, I'm going to get straight into it. So, still juggling, still at home. We know that the key issues from all the research that we've seen and from all of the discussions that we have with clients and participants at our workshops, that there are 3 really key issues. And we touched on it on the initial chat before we even started the session today, that there's this feeling of, I'm going to skip to the second one, disconnection and overconnection. This feeling of, I feel isolated, I'm away from everybody, but at the same time, I'm being bombarded with so much information. And often within the organisations we work, we're being bombarded with lots of information and connection opportunities and ways to collaborate because we're all worried about each other. We all want to make sure we're okay. And as team leaders, you may feel this with your team that initially during COVID, everyone ramped up communication. And then we kind of found a middle ground of where, you know, sometimes, you know, the daily team catch-ups are a bit much, and maybe you only want to do that a couple of times a week. I'd really encourage you guys to just think, as we go through this session, about each of these questions I'm going to pose. Where do you feel right now in terms of disconnection, overconnection? Too much, too little? And how can you change that up? How can you redefine what the right level of connection is for you, and engage your team in that conversation to understand what's the right level of connection for them? Are they now starting to feel disconnected again? Are they starting to feel that they need some regular catch-up, some time, even if it's a 5-minute stand-up first thing in the morning, to reconnect with each other? Can you encourage people to go and do things like walking meetings, to get out and get some balance whilst they're also getting connection? So I'm going to just pose those questions as we go through and get you to think about what you could do here differently. I'm going to skip to the first one again, work-life blur. This is a really important one, and we're going to touch on this as we go into the session. There was a really big sense of this early on, and I think that most people are starting to come back to this feeling of just, how do I separate these areas of my life? How do I ensure that I have some balance here? So we're going to talk about that again as we go into the session. And the last point here, defining success, is a really important one. We saw early on in COVID, in lockdowns around the country, that many businesses realized they needed to move very quickly from thinking about 9 to 5, sitting at the desk, I'm here, I'm present. That was an indicator of success. And they changed very much to a results-based kind of culture, where we know that it's very important for individuals to have a sense of, we are connected or we're not connected, but we are achieving the things that we need to do in the day, and being able to give people the flexibility to have some balance, to actually move around and do different things during their day, rather than the time frame being the key indicator of success. I just get you guys to reflect on that as well. What are you now measuring in your business? What are your key indicators? How are you feeling? Whether you've got to the end of the week and you're feeling a sense of achievement, can you clearly, I guess, articulate that to yourself and to your team? Okay, I'm going to get moving into some more great stuff here. This was a really cool little one that we found really early on in COVID. So this was back in March, the end of March 2020. And it just portrayed how everyone was feeling. And I sense, and as ninjas with all of the clients we work with, we're sensing a lot of people are back in this space right now. So we saw that, you know, we could be highly productive normally, but during this really crazy time, our productivity really dropped. We had a mixed bag here. I think some people realized once they started working from home that they could actually get a lot more done, because they had sometimes a bit of a quieter space. When they weren't homeschooling, they actually had the ability to think clearly and do some really deep thinking work and get stuff done in a more efficient way. That's waned, I think. I think that we've come to a point where we're all again just getting burnout, a bit of anxiety, quite a lot of stress, a bit of Zoom fatigue. So I apologize, we're on Zoom, but it is very short. It's really important to just regroup with ourselves and our teams and everyone in our household, our kids, our partners, you know, whoever we're sharing that space with, or if we're singles, you know, if we're on our own all day, that has a huge impact on us too. So it's really important to think about our productivity in context of not beating ourselves up. There is so much else going on in our lives right now. So let's figure out, how do we remain productive and feel great and have a sense of achievement when the world is a bit crazy? Okay, so we're going to get into some tips and techniques on that now. I wanted to also pause. I love this quote from Albert. This is one that we use a lot in our workshops. You know, when we think about, if we're in the middle of this really difficult space, often little opportunities and things pop up that can be really amazing and can change the way we look and think and feel about things. So I'd really encourage you to embrace the opportunities of working from home. And even though it might feel really exhausting right now, let's think about how we can take some positives away. So we'll get into that. Number one, I'm going to start talking about getting started. Okay. some really interesting things around getting started. Now, we saw people thinking about when they first went into COVID, thinking about, I can sit around in my PJs. I don't have to get dressed up. I don't have to commute. So often it's really interesting where we are positioned. And I want to just stop and mention, I come from the Central Coast area, is where I'm based right now, which is the Disconnection lands, or the Disconnection people. And being connected to land has become really important to me. So Dee, thank you for mentioning that you're from the Wallalong region, and that means flat or near river or creek. So ours is place of the nut, I believe. We are from this kind of region where there was a really big, strong movement for Aboriginal people to come at certain times of the year to gather fruits and vegetables and the native Indigenous plant materials. And being able to connect with our physical space and being here is wonderful. I think during COVID, what we've also done though is we've started to move into some bad patterns in terms of, do we actually get dressed in the morning? We're starting to notice clients rocking up to sessions where normally they would have been fairly formally dressed, and, it might be t-shirt, it might be sloppy joes, it might be hoodies, that we're not making such an effort to get ready for the sessions that we're going into when we have a virtual connection where we can see each other. There's some really interesting research, which I have shared in a couple of Ninja Skill Boosters before, but I'm going to just mention it again. This factor called enclosed cognition. Now, we see that when we make an effort, when we get dressed in the mornings, when we maybe put on some makeup, when we get ready, we wear clothes that indicate to our brain that we are getting ready for work, it actually switches on our brain. This research shows this. So this was the white lab coat experiment. I'm not sure if you guys remember this. Some of you may, some of you won't. They basically looked at people's cognition level, their ability to solve problems, and then they gave them a white lab coat. And the perception was, oh, we're scientific. We're actually moving into a zone of more genius, potentially, was kind of the expectation. And their cognition level went up. When they then told them that the white coats were actually painters' coats, interestingly, their cognition went down. Now that's a very, I guess, we've got a perception around those industries and not necessarily the people that are in those industries, but you can see that our brain switches on. It engages when we perceive that we are stepping into work, into an area where we need to think more clearly. So I just get you to reflect on that right now. Think about, am I still getting ready in the mornings? Am I starting my day well? I know that early on, some of my wonderful clients were doing things like they set up a fake commute, and we really encourage you guys to do this. So they would still get up, they would still go. One of my clients is a runner. Some of you on the line might know this particular person. He still ran to the station every day and ran back. That was his start to the day. It can be simple though, as walking to the mailbox and back. That could be your trigger. It could be a special mug that you use for work. It could be the way you lay out your desk, your space that you use. So yeah, get yourself ready. Virginia, interesting question. Even if the camera is off? Yes, even if the camera is off. And there's a whole heap of stuff we talk about around cameras on, cameras off in our comms workshops. But I would really encourage you guys to think about what this does for your brain and how it makes you feel. It makes you feel more engaged and into the process of being professional, maybe. So yeah, really useful one. Number 2, okay, desk and workshop audit. We're going to take some time here, guys. I'm going to get you to think about, is your workspace conducive to getting started in the mornings? Is it conducive to helping you feel productive and in the zone? And I mean here, everything around you that either interacts with your productivity or interferes with it. Things like your laptop. Do you have a gazillion things on your desktop right now? Have you forgotten to clean that up? Have you got loads of apps and tabs open all the time? Yes, Mina. Okay. Is it time to do a little bit of a refresh, a clean up to get yourself feeling a little bit less cluttered and overwhelmed? I would also encourage you things like, I know during COVID, I bought a big headset because when I first started in COVID, I actually had my office in the kitchen and I had 2 teenagers in the kitchen while I was running workshops. It wasn't great, but I bought a big set of headsets. They really helped me. They really helped me to concentrate and focus. They looked silly too. They made people laugh. But those headsets now don't work for me. Oh, so the headset works, but my speakers on my computer are giving me problems. If I don't use Zoom, if I'm using other platforms, I'm having to use my headset again. So things like that. Is there something that's not working now that you need to fix? Are there other platforms around you that you need some help with? How's your desk going? Is it cluttered? Do you have piles of things on your desk? Do you not have a desk still? Are you still working at the kitchen bench? Omar, can't see your desk. Okay, awesome. So I would really love, guys, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. Don't have to do the work right now, but I'd love you to think about how you could potentially build this into your weekly review. Yeah, and doing a desk and workspace audit, know what it is you need to fix, and then spend some time, allocate time in your diary to do this. So Rena, yes, school holidays next week, time to rearrange and clean up, yeah. And moving your space often, no problem with that, Jasmine. It's great to refresh your space and get it kind of feeling right and get you into a new headspace, so that's great. Not working when delivering via Teams, yeah, okay, that's frustrating, Dee, yeah. And the tech savviness, I know our tech teams in business really need to help us and assist us with some of this stuff. It's really challenging for them too, being remote, but a lot of businesses have kind of worked on that. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'm going to be quiet for 2 minutes and get you to think about what is in your zone of influence. If you don't have a separate workspace, I know that's really difficult. Is there something that you could do differently to create the right environment to help you to get some quiet time and thinking time? Okay, 2 minutes. I will be back at 9:19 and we're going to really push through this stuff. Okay, I think that was 2 minutes. I'm just mentioning move the desk close to the window. Absolutely, some natural light, very important. Lots of windows open. Yep. I actually worked yesterday. We had the most beautiful day. I worked most of the day outside. Okay. If you can change up, dial up where you're working, move things around, it can really help. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to need to move fast because there's so much content I want to share with you guys. Eating frogs. I really want to focus on this concept because it's a really great way when we're feeling a bit lost, a bit disconnected, a little bit out of sorts, a bit exhausted. This can really help us get focused again and get back into flow. Now, we've talked in previous Ninja Skill Boosters. I would really encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to go and have a look at the Overwhelm to Calm one. We talk a lot about doing a brain dump. Really great way to get stuff out of your head, get yourself organized around, okay, what of these things do I actually need to do stuff? Yeah, and Sheila, awesome, is amazing what you can do in 2 minutes, isn't it? Also remember second brain, really important for you to work with your second brain, keep it up to date, get focused on setting up a great second brain. That's a whole another topic, but some of these techniques will really help you to stay focused when you're at home. And remember your boss thinking versus your worker mode. This one is critical to make sure we do these two styles of thinking to help us plan and organize for our day and then to get stuff done. And if you haven't done it yet, the daily boot up There's another ninja skill booster there for you. The daily boot up really helps us to get started again. It helps us to plan our day, to organize, to pick our top 5, to feel a sense of achievement when we get to the end of the day. But what happens when we get really stuck on frogs? So these things that keep dropping off our list, we put them on, they keep coming back the next day. Think about using the frog technique. So the frog idea, it came from Mark Twain. I know some of you have heard me say this before, but Mark Twain coined the phrase, if the worst thing we had to do in the day was to eat a big, ugly frog, then we should eat it first thing. And if we have more than one ugly frog, we should eat the biggest one first. Okay. So really encouraging you guys to think about your focus techniques. Think about things like doing Pomodoros to get you started. But also with these frogs, I would really encourage you guys as a team, or even as an individual, you can ask somebody, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's one of your kids. Mum needs to get this done today, or dad needs to get this done today. Can you ask me at the end of the day, did I do it? Encourage you to really get focused. Having that little bit of accountability can really help you to get it done, and reward yourself with doing the stuff that you love to do afterwards. So rather than just beating yourself up with the big frogs, make sure there's some incentives here for our brain to feel like there's positive reinforcement and that we feel great sense of achievement when we get them done. Really, really focusing on frogs can be great. And I actually think that the frogs can be quite cute, and you can make some fun with this with your team too. We do virtual frog hunts a lot with teams when we're teaching this stuff. Get your teams to think about that. If you do have regular stand-ups in the mornings, ask your team, are you hunting any frogs today? Which ones do you need help with? How can we support you to get that frog completed? So really think about just helping yourself overcome, say, that exhaustion, the anxiety, by getting some focus onto frogs. Just a little one. Okay, number 4. I did want to really touch on this one in some detail. Human, not superhero. It's one of our key ninja principles. We are all human, not superheroes. And we know that when we get really exhausted, it's really hard to make decisions. Yeah. We get what's called decision fatigue. And right now, a lot of people are feeling this fatigue hugely. Really, this research is quite key. This is based on parole board judges. Okay, so this research is based on those judges that are making decisions about whether a particular person is suitably rehabilitated in order that they can get released back into the community. So these decisions are really critical. You know, if they release people back too soon, you know, are they going to reoffend? It's really a very difficult decision to make. And this chart shows decision making across the day. So at the start of the day, you can see I'm making positive decisions. And this means they're making decisions where they're saying, yes, I'm going to release you. You are going to get parole. As we go through to morning tea, that first dip is actually how many positive decisions they make. So it becomes harder for them to say yes and easier for them to say no, because they're just not thinking as clearly. After a break, so that's the first little bop up, after a break, their decision-making capability comes back, and then it drops again rapidly down to lunchtime. After lunch, pops up, and then you can see the afternoon is just not great. And we've talked a lot about energy, so making sure you understand where your energy levels are. I know by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm pretty much done. I get a bit of a burst a bit later, but I know that my most productive time is in the morning. It's when I think most clearly. Make sure you're aware of this for yourself and take breaks. Breaks are so important for nutritional reasons, for movement reasons, to keep our brains engaged. Move, flow, go do something different. Make sure you're dialing it up. If you have a stand-up desk, please use it. Move around every single moment that you can. Get some movement into your day. It helps our brains to stay engaged. Yeah, so really think about these breaks. They are not wasted time. They are really great for resetting and recharging our brain. And there are also many forms of focus. So there's some really interesting research I've been dabbling into recently, which is, you know, we can get this really deep focus and we can hold that for short periods of time. But there's also what they call diffused focus. I mentioned this on the last Ninja Skill Booster as well. That diffused focus is a time when our subconscious brain takes over. It starts to help us with problem solving and creativity. It's equally as important as those deep thinking times. So don't underestimate the power of the break. It's very important. I also want to mention this concept of home time. It's really important that we bookend either end of the day. So we talked about getting started. It's also really important to think about finishing and closing the office door if you have an office, or closing the laptop, closing the computer down and saying, see you tomorrow. Actually having a break is so important. Yeah, very, very key to ensuring that your brain can switch off. And I know for some of you, this is tricky because you may have changed up your work hours and have extended time at the end of the day when you're expected to do catch up if you've had to take time out during the day. So think about how you can signal to your brain when you have finally finished for the day that it's time to switch off. Again, our brain needs those cues. It might be getting changed out of the work clothes. It might be going and doing a little walk up to the mailbox again, doing things that signal we're done, and giving your brain the ability to rest and recover, and your body too. Yeah, this is so important to manage anxieties, to manage stress, and to manage our productivity, to really get us focused on the right things again. So really encourage you to make sure you have that little close down routine, because no matter how much a productivity ninja seems to be a superhero, we are not superheroes. Yeah, we need rest, recuperation. We need to take good care of our physical body as well as our mental health. And right now that is challenging. So I would not underestimate this as a technique for boosting your productivity. I'm going to whiz through the next couple of minutes because we are almost done. Okay. Now, number 5, work has changed forever. We have seen a lot of research. We know that around 80% of people are working from home right now in the states that are in lockdown. And it's not expected that we're all going to go back to the office. There's been a huge shift to the way businesses are operating, and people realizing that there are significant benefits to working from home. So when we want our deep thinking time, when we want our single solo work to be done, working from home is absolutely amazing. We know that collaboration and things like creativity and problem solving, when we need a group around us, that is better done face to face. So there are roles for both, but we know that around 60 to 70% of people globally will not be returning to the office full time. So they will move into a more hybrid working space. They will have some days at home potentially, or somewhere else, even if it's not home, and some days in the office. This is our opportunity, and I would really encourage you guys to think deeply on this. This is our opportunity to think about what we want our working life to look like moving forward. This was actually a quote from a lovely colleague of mine when I was still back in corporate, when we first started going into COVID lockdown. And she said, we are no longer working from home. We are sleeping in the office. And that was really articulating this sense of overwhelm and work-life blur, and the fact that it's taken over everything. How do we stop that from happening? How do we make sure that we use each of these spaces for the kinds of work that are best suited to those spaces? I want to give you, I'm going to pause, I'm going to skip through Graham, but Graham's point is productivity is making space for what matters. Yeah, really important for us to think about what matters to us most. And I'm going to give you 1 minute, okay, because we're out of time almost. 1 minute. What does your new normal look like? Please take just 1 minute, and I will go over just by maybe 2 minutes. I hope that none of you have to rush off. But please think about this, even if you do this exercise outside of the session. What do I really want my new working life to look like? Okay, it's 9:30. I know some of you may need to go, so I'm going to whiz through this last wrap up really quickly. We have covered obviously the background as to around why we're feeling so anxious and probably overwhelmed and exhausted, but we've got great techniques and tips to share with you. This content that I've shared with you today is from our working from home workshop. If you need more help for your teams, please get in touch. We have loads of resources to share and great ways to engage teams around this discussion about what do we want our new normal to look like. I would really love you guys to learn more about this stuff and think about how you can reframe your working life moving forward and how that might fit with your work-life balance and what you want for yourself moving forward. So please get in touch. I would also encourage you to think about this morning, just if you can pause for a couple of minutes after the session, what will I stop, start and continue? If you want to pop this in the chat box right now, just to give yourself a little bit of a commitment with everybody else. What will I stop doing now working from home? What am I going to start doing that I'm not doing? And how will I continue? What are the things that are working well for me? Dee, I'm going to just post in the chat box. Thank you for the question. Can I get that to type for me? No. Okay, I've lost the... What we're going to do is after this session, we'll send you a link to this recording, and it will also give you access to our YouTube account where all of the previous Ninja Skill Boosters are. So yeah, please feel free to check those out. It will give you lots of extra help and support as you need it right now. And please remember, we have loads of workshops out there to help you and your team. So please get in touch. Here are my details again. I am going to get you out of here only 1 minute late, which is really good. But I am going to hold on for any questions. So if anybody would like to chat with me, please feel free to stay on the line. Otherwise, I'm going to pause the recording. Actually, I'll stop the recording right now.